Once upon a time in ancient Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, humans made a breakthrough that changed the course of history. Water makes plants grow. Plants make food. Food means fewer people starving. Civilization achieved. Early Mesopotamians built canals, ditches, and irrigation systems to bring river water to their fields. They turned desert into farmland and deserts into empires. Wheat, barley, and dates flourished. Cities rose. Things were going great. But then came the salt. Now, to be fair, they weren't dumping buckets of sea salt onto their crops. The water they used looked fresh. But even river water contains tiny amounts of dissolved salts. Normally that's not a big deal, unless you do what Mesopotamians did and water your fields just enough to keep the crops alive year after year in scorching heat. Here's the problem. When you irrigate land in a hot, dry climate, the water evaporates. But the salt, that stays behind. It builds up, slowly, silently, until one day your wheat just gives up, your fields go pale, crops wither, and no one really knows why. What the ancient farmers didn't realize was that you need more than just enough water. Sometimes you have to give the soil a proper rinse, a deep soak to flush those salts down and away from the roots. That's drainage, that's leaching. And that's something they didn't understand. Instead, they kept up their minimal watering routine, trying to conserve water, which makes sense because it's the desert. But ironically, that conservation slowly poisoned their land. And here's where it gets really rough. The process isn't fast. It took generations. A little more salt each season, a little less yield, then a failed harvest, then another. And by the time people realized something was wrong, the damage was baked into the soil. So why is salt such a problem? It's not like the plants are just being picky. Salt in the soil messes with the way plants absorb water. Normally, plant roots pull in moisture through osmosis, like little natural sponges. But when salt builds up in the soil, it flips the script. Now, the water wants to move out of the plant roots and into the salty soil. That's right, the plant actually dehydrates even when water is present. It's like trying to drink water through a straw while someone's sucking on the other end. And the more salt builds up, the worse it gets. Eventually, the plant can't absorb water or nutrients, even if it's surrounded by both. It just wilts and dies slowly, dramatically, like it's in a Shakespeare play. The surface layer of the soil becomes crusty, white, and almost impermeable. You know those flat, dry areas with the weird white film on them? That's salt. And once it's there, growing anything becomes an uphill battle. Think of it like putting a thin layer of poison frosting over your entire field. Looks okay from a distance, but nothing's growing under it. Over time, entire regions became inarable. Crop yields plummeted, populations declined, cities were abandoned. And that salty layer? It's still there in parts of Iraq and Syria today. Thousands of years later, the land is still trying to recover from what seemed like totally normal farming practices at the time. The tragedy is, they didn't know. They thought water equals sign good, and salt, they probably didn't even notice it. There were no lab tests, no warning signs beyond, why do these plants look sad? And they were so close to figuring it out. All they had to do was overwater every now and then. Flood the fields a bit, give the salt somewhere to go, but instead they treated water like it was gold, and used the absolute minimum. Turns out the just enough approach to irrigation only works if you're not slowly building a chemical landmine under your own crops. This ancient mistake is one of the first examples of how humans accidentally damage their own environment. Not out of greed, not out of malice, just ignorance. A simple misunderstanding of how the land works, and today we're still learning from it. So the next time you worry about overwatering your houseplant, at least you're not unintentionally salting an empire into extinction. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel for more interesting and lesser-known history.